I'll start by sort of saying welcome. My name is Chris Lasky. I'm with Altai Systems. We also have Hannah Schenkel behind the scenes with Altai. We are an AMS provider. I don't want to beat on that too much because that's not what you're here to talk about. But I will sort of say clients come to us because they're done with their proprietary systems and that can't keep up with technological advances. They want to be able to achieve elevated engagement and empowerment for their members or constituents, which is, I think, a part of why we're here today to talk about. And they want a user-friendly, consistent, automated experience across all their applications in their ecosystem. But that's not why you're here. You're here to learn more about web engagement. So I'd like to introduce you to today's guest speaker. Her name is Moira Edwards with Ellipsis Partners. As I begin her introduction, I'd also love it if you could introduce yourself in the chat. Please go there and say who you are, where you work for, and because this is an expectations versus reality, please also include what are your expectations for today's webinar. Love to hear that. I put that question in the chat so you can refer back to it. Moira, thank you for joining us today. She has over 25 years of experience in implementing large and small scale software solutions for associations, nonprofits, government agencies, and commercial organizations alike, both within and outside the United States. Within Ellipsis Partners, Moira focuses on the intersection of technology and organizational strategy. She provides technology coaching, helping IT managers, directors, C-suites, etc., to manage their teams, their resources effectively and within the context of their own organization and the changing world around them. She's also a co-founder and board member of the Association Women Technology Champions, AWTC. AWTC Tech is their website. If you'd like to go for more information and upcoming events there, that's a fantastic organization. There are many ways your association might be interested in knowing more about Ellipsis Partners or AWTC, including their work within associations to select technology solutions that support organizational missions and strategy and bring value to members and customers. We recommend that you take full advantage of her time here today. I mentioned it sort of at the top that you have the ability to unmute and to ask questions verbally. You can also post those in the chat. So we're trying to make this as interactive as possible and as a great learning opportunity as we can. This is a CAE Credit webinar, so you'll receive that email after the fact, probably within 24 hours from us here at Altai. You'll also get a follow-up email with a link to the recording so that you can refer back to it on anything that you really enjoyed. And we'll also make sure that you have contact information for both Ellipsis and Altai should you wish to follow up. Without further ado, I will turn the mic over to Moira.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, Chris. And you mentioned AWTC, Association Women Technology Champions. I love that organization. I'm very proud of it. And the awards process is currently open. So if you know of any badass women in technology, which you might know a few, do go ahead and encourage them to apply. What I'm going to do now is start our slideshow. Here we go. So today what we want to talk about is websites and web engagement. And I'm delighted to have you here because this is one of my favorite things, because it's all about the experience. People have such different expectations of what we do with our websites, whether they're inside the organization or a little bit outside the organization. So today we'll talk a bit about how you can meet and perhaps manage those expectations. And I'm, as Chris said, I'm Moira Edwards, president of Ellipsis Partners. And, you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've been working to serve associations with technology for about 25 years now. So that's me, but would love to hear from you. Delighted to see people posting in the chat where you are. And let's keep a conversation going. As Chris mentioned, this is not in webinar mode. This is in meeting mode, meaning if you have a great question, go ahead and post in the chat. Maybe if you have a great question or great examples, we'll invite you up to chat if you're come on screen, if you're up for it. So would love to know where you are, where you're calling in from today. Tell us also your professional website that you like the most, your favorite professional website. So, and why? What is really good about the websites that you like? And throughout the session, post comments, thoughts, suggestions, perspectives. Would love to hear from you. So we absolutely know that websites have changed, and this is the Association of American Medical Colleges, my very first association. I joined them in 1998, and this screenshot dates from about that time, 1998, and that was what it looked like at the time. And that's changed. I remembered this one particularly because I was on the staff team that gave a lot of input as to what that website should look like. And I must say, I've had nothing to do with the evolution of what AAMC is doing. I just love the organization, and I always kind of return to their website to see what's happening in good website design. So we can see that over time, websites have certainly changed. And we probably have a good sense of what those websites changes have been. Obviously a lot more graphics, photos, video. We're really working to have more white space, to have the layout, move around for it to be, mobile responsive, but device appropriate for whatever device, to have content that's more thumb appropriate, right, for our phones and apps and integrations. But I think one of the biggest changes that hasn't been fully explored really occurred in some ways over the pandemic. Our websites are incredibly dense. The amount of content we now have to manage is impossibly large. So when we think about 2023, our members, our constituents, our stakeholders are saying, give me access to all of your digital resources through the website. I should be able to find everything through the website. But all of our resources are digital. There isn't anything that doesn't have digital aspects anymore, whether it's our journal or our newsletter, the learning, our community, even advocacy, like it all has digital aspects. And since the pandemic, and everybody got familiar with going online and going on Teams and going on Zoom, we all expect to get that full membership experience online. We love in person. We're all thrilled to be back in person, but there's a huge expectation that we can access everything through the website. And I think that puts a burden on associations that really has increased in recent years. So maybe put into the chat, what are some expectations that you have to meet? What are some of the things you're hearing from your staff, your colleagues, from your members, your board, all of those people, who have sponsors and partners and regulators. And we're also going to think a bit about the people who know your organization, the savvy, and then the unfamiliar. Like what do they need? So if you have any thoughts about that, put them in the chat. So, because what I found and what I've heard from so many organizations, staff, right, your colleagues, they want to reduce questions. They want to reduce emails and reduce calls. Erica, thank you. Content, it needs to be curated to the unique needs of members. So members want you to know who they are and bring you right to what they want, right? Staff want to simplify, but they want it to really showcase offerings, and they want it kind of easy to maintain, right? Oh yeah, Felicia, people absolutely, and we have to, particularly if we accept grants, have to make sure it meets accessibility standards. But that's even just more of an ethical burden these days. It's not just a kind of financial one. Needs to be easy to find. Rachel, isn't that the enduring thing? I just want to be able to find the thing. right? And that's a real, members, I just want to find it. I just want to do the thing. So members who are kind of known, who know the organization, want to go straight through. But sometimes, like the unfamiliar, maybe they have no clue what you do, and so they don't know what they don't know. So you have to curate, you have to kind of give them some information up front and then dig in. Heather's saying we have a lot of members who always want to hold on to everything. Law librarians, gosh, yes, I imagine they're even worse than archivists. Documents older than 5 years. So it's finding a balance between making the website easy to navigate and manage while providing the information they need. Yes, and that is, that's the key. That's the key tension, right? Between making it easy, but then making it all there, right? Like, because if you simplify things, maybe you're not putting all your information on the website, but people want the information on the website. So there's a huge, this is an art as well as a science. And Mike, hello, Mike, views on we want frictionless commerce. What is the definition of that in this industry? That is a typical Mike Fry comment. Delighted to have you here. And I'm going to let you answer that one yourself. So what I want to do is talk a bit about what our goals are today then. Because in today's session, what we'd like to do is to think about ways to reduce friction so that when they come to your website, whoever they are, the person who knows nothing or the person who just knows exactly what they want to do, that that we're not putting barriers in their way. So first of all is reduce any friction. And then the second thing is to draw them in and to increase engagement. So I have 6 tips to give you on ways that we've seen other organizations manage that well or struggle with it. And hopefully these will be useful to you. I'm actually I think I'm going to paste these in the chat so that you have these available to you as we go through, because I've got a lot of screens coming up. All right. Give me context. In the immortal words of Shrek, websites have layers. I wanted Shrek ears to do this, right? But we'll just imagine those for the moment. So when we think about your website, we really have to think about it in terms of different layers and presentations of when people come to it. And that first layer is showcase, right? When somebody comes to your website, the first thing they should get is a sense that you're a credible organization. They should get a sense of what the purpose of your association is. And if you're doing storytelling well, they'll get a certain emotion, hopefully a pride. Oh, wow. In that very first image. And so somebody I think that does that well, friends of ours, EMDRIA, and that's the EMDR International Association, where EMDR is an amazing therapy. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is used actually, it's used in VA hospitals to help with PTSD. So it's a great therapy. And so their homepage has this really impactful image, this impactful statement. So you can see, if that is all you saw about them, you'd know they were about healing. And now you can see from the menu items, like right up front, so you know they're about therapy, you know they're about training and education, right? So you can get a sense that this is a credible yet impactful organization, very first glance. So that's going to be important, that showcasing of at that first layer. And then the next thing, as we were talking about earlier, is kind of curating. So somebody's coming, but imagine you're walking into a store and you've walked in, you're going to browse first. If you don't exactly know what you're there for, you might kind of walk around like, does this place have what I need? So when we talk about curating, we want to show people the range of what we do. We want to facilitate browsing and exploration. And one of the key ways of doing that is going to be through menus. This is the very lovely Society for Imaging Informatics and Medicine, and they are incredibly cool. and have been working. This website, I think, launched about a month ago. And the idea here is that this is a curiosity portal, so that if you come and you just look at the menu, you will see all, not just a list of resources, but that they have different types of resources and a catalog and publication. Oh, and they do guidelines and standards, right? If you were to browse, just put your mouse through each of their menu headings, and you went from left to right all the way through, you'd get a really, really good idea of what they offered and maybe whether they could solve your problem. Maybe if they have the resource that you might need. So what they're trying to do is, this very dense website is make it less opaque, right? Make it so that you can see into it and go, oh, look, oh, they do this. Oh, like you want that sense of like, ooh, right? So then our next layer is search. So for search, now this is somebody who knows exactly what they want to do, right? So this is somebody who wants to solve a problem, target specific. And if search were easy, Google would not be as rich as they are today, right? Like there's a search, to do it well is hard. So in this case, I go to ASAE. Again, I have no responsibility for anything that ASAE does, never been involved. But again, I like going to them to see what they're doing because I think quite often they have good examples. And so here's a search for on ASAE's website. And that it is, allows me to target in. There's kind of I've got facets at the side. I can narrow down the search. I can see what kinds of information are there. I have dated information. I have descriptions. So, this is a robust search that lets me get all the way through. And then once we've done that, then their last thing is people want to do stuff, right? But you've brought them through these layers of bringing them in, establishing confidence that you're an organization that can solve their problem. And so now they want to do the thing. They want to solve the problem. And so, this is an example, not an organization we've ever worked with, but I think actually, Chris, a client of Altai's, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So again, so now they want to do the thing. So in this case, they have an exam application, and you understand the context in doing the thing. You can actually go through it and do it easily. So the purpose of kind of thinking about a website in layers, I find it very hard not to say that with a Shrek accent. Layers is that you want to give people kind of context of where they are all the time. I'm a big fan of breadcrumbs still. I think they're a little old-fashioned, but they tell you where the heck you are. So once you've done that, when you give them some context, one of the ways to do that, as we saw, is through maximizing the menus, because we've got these very dense websites. So we have this overwhelming choice that we give our site visitors, right? And the question is, are we making that accessible? Like we were talking about making stuff accessible. So there's accessible in the term of high contrast, alt text on images, but there's also just accessible of like, where the heck is it? Is it buried somewhere on a shelf? And what we've discovered is when we do usability studies, that if somebody's given a task to complete, if they're coming to your website to do something, menus first, right? Just to get a sense of where it might be, then search. They do not scan the home page. And in fact, that one thing that you're trying to highlight on the home page, and you've kind of outlined it in orange and kind of made it like they think it's an ad, and their eyes will almost automatically skip over it, because we're all used to trying to read articles on, okay, maybe not everybody's used to trying to read an article on BuzzFeed, but when I try and read an article on BuzzFeed, I'm having to skip over all of the ads that is trying to, that's how they're making their money. Okay, so we've become trained to skip over the things that are clamoring for attention, to seek the things that we want to find. So menus are so powerful. This is one I particularly like. Again, I have never done any web work with SHRM, but they're well funded, they're savvy. I like to go and see what they're doing, and I particularly like this this website or this menu structure because of how clear it is. It's really clear and it's really comprehensive. Again, if you were to go across SHRM's menus, and you don't have to click, you just on hover, you'll see what they're about. It's really great. These are our friends of ours, the National Council of State Housing Agencies, the most amazing people. And during the pandemic, this small association got overwhelmed because a big issue during the pandemic was housing for low-income people and the subsidies that were available and the rules around, not evicting people. So they ended up adding lots of stuff to their menus, right? This menu actually has another 7 items below that, what's printed here. So, that's something that they're going to be working on to kind of, their template limited them. They couldn't do these nice, expansive, menus in the moment. So, but they did keep adding the information. So if you go there, at least you know what they have. We've seen other organizations stick to what was probably the old rule of no more than 7 items on a menu. The mind can't absorb more than, say, 5 to 7 items. If you get to 9, that works if all you're doing is kind of that top level. But what we see now with these mega menus, these flyout menus, is that you can give a lot more information in the menu structure. So they're working to change theirs. We saw SIM earlier. They're look what they do. They have a hackathon. They're a very cool organization. I just have to say, they've been using AI for years and writing algorithms to figure out which images are images of melanomas and which are not. I mean, they're just a cool organization, and they're working to give that insight into the organization through menus also. Back to AAMC, here we go. They have 4, again, I didn't design this, but I just appreciate it. There's 4 ways to access their data and reports here. Explore all data and reports, explore data about various key topics, show the latest reports, and show frequently accessed in one menu item. So Brittany, you're saying, would you put any type of limits on how many pages or topics should be included? Not really on a desktop view. I think what's more important is if you have, when we saw SHRM, there was a lot of stuff there. If it's well designed, you can really put an awful lot of information there. Now, the question then is, do you have a good web company who helps you then figure it out on mobile? Because that's using good mobile responsive design. It shouldn't be a barrier. The main thing is that I would much prefer to have a long, menu with a lot of stuff than to not to be lost. I don't know about you, but I hate going to a website and just not knowing what it does or where to go. Give me some information. I have the equivalent of artificial intelligence in here. I can parse out what I see, right? So that's tip number 2, maxing the menus. The other thing that we want to talk about or want to think about in terms of reducing friction, but also drawing people in, is gathering knowledge, right? So one of the things that I think was hardest during the pandemic was to foster a sense of belonging online. And one of the ways, belonging is a sense of being seen, of being known. But one great way to make people feel like they belong is to ask them, right? I don't know if you've ever run a volunteer committee. I was head of the tech council for ASAE a couple of years back, and I found that if I put out a general call for models and samples for tech RFPs or whatever, nobody would give stuff in. But if I went to each person on the council and said, hey, do you have an example, then that was at the power of the personal ask meant that we got a lot more back. So how do you translate that into a website? Well, there's just lots of ways. And what's more, if we do this, I love this, that the Benjamin Franklin effect related to cognitive dissonance, but this a psychological phenomenon in which people like someone more after doing a favor for them. If I do you a favor, then I must like you. Otherwise, I would have cognitive dissonance, right? So I must like you. So I'd be interested in any examples you have right now, or any thoughts on what asks are you making of your members or your constituents or your certificates or whoever your population that you serve is. What asks do you make of them? Some of the ones that we've seen, I'm going to talk through here. Sometimes I hear marketers talk about this as calls to action, and it's very, it's very inspirational. But I think when I hear a call to action, it sometimes seems to me like there's a faceless mass of people out there, and I want to lead the charge. To me, I want to be interested. I want these people to be seen and to feel like they belong. So, asking for feedback. We've seen that done well where people, you read an article and there's an actual question. What did you think of this article? Maybe, and you could use a like, a thumbs up. But if you actually ask someone, what did you think of this article? This third, have you any questions for the author? Imagine if you're browsing a website and somebody says, have you any questions for the author? Oh, you mean like I do? I can actually ask it and we'll get that back. Like now suddenly I'm not just some random person on a static website. I'm being asked for my thoughts, my opinions. I'm being connected to people who are experts on the topic. Like that's a really powerful thing. We've had organizations in their the profile. Like, so I'm in there, maybe I've just renewed, and they go, oh, so you just renewed. Why did you renew? What's the best thing about this organization? Why did you renew? And what we might say is, ask them how would you rate the organization? How, net promoter score, right? In the profile. So not even on the website, like where you have them, their members. How likely are you to recommend our organization to somebody else and capture that? So now you're not only drawing them in and asking their opinion, you're getting data. You're getting really good information about why people renew, what's important to them. You can do that with mini surveys. We're going to talk in a moment about embed codes. Little surveys. Did you find what you were looking for today? What were you looking for? Like improve your website usability and, convey that sense that you are listening and you care about what they say. What topics would you like to see? One organization that we're working with is using a light box. That the pop-up that comes up, right, is using a light box to encourage people to update their profile. When it looks like you haven't updated your profile recently, Moira. Right, the light box actually is going to have personalized data from Salesforce in it, right? Sorry, from their AMS. But the other one that we've seen, this is the Association of National Advertisers. Again, I don't know them. I was talking to some people who are members, and they were saying, like, when you go to the website, if you have a login, it encourages you to log in. I don't have a login, but when you go to the website, there's a big green area down the bottom, learn about membership. It's even more kind of in your face when you go yourself. It's not when it's not on a slide. And if you do click on it like I did, and I clicked on learn about membership, then the next thing was contact membership. So what we're seeing is that they're using the website to really bring people in. Any thoughts? I'd love to hear any thoughts about those different ways. Anybody using those different ways of drawing people into your website, kind of asking them for information? Would love to hear if you post those thoughts in the chat, or other organizations that you've seen that do it well. That we'd all benefit from seeing it done well. what we want to talk about now is visual cues, which is another way to reduce friction on the website. Now, I'm going to talk, we just started using mini surveys, Rich. Oh, that's great. You see, those, and I'd love to see that, that there, Rachel says she's using mini surveys on specific pages of the website. Again, it's a wonderful way to gather information so that you can improve the experience, but it is an engagement tool in and of itself. So the reason I have Changeling up here, anybody ever heard of Changeling? Possibly not. I think it comes from a very dark set of fairy tales. Like, and you know, I'm from the old world, not the new world. So I think we grew up with a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales. Actually, the books were in, you know, we read them when we were kids. So a changeling in fairy tales is when the fairies take your baby away and put one of their own in its place. And it looks almost exactly the same as your baby, but you know something is different, something's wrong. And I think we do that with websites. So our friends at ACTL, American College of Trial Lawyers, have a lovely, this is a nice, their main website is lovely. They've got nice, clear menus there. They've got some great images. So, you know, the website is comprehensive, it's strong. And then they have a learning center, which is their separate LMS. And when you go to the learning center, it's like it's almost the same. I mean, the menus are the same, but they're not quite, like they have shifted a little. And in fact, this is an LMS, so the content is different. And the search, if you do the search there at the left, that'll bring up learning content. But if you just do the search at the top right, up the little magnifying glass, it's going to bring you website content. So that's something that they're working to address, because people couldn't find what they wanted, because it was, but they didn't quite know that they'd gone to a different platform. So one of the options you have is to use visual cues and just really make it darn clear. So if you're on the ASAE homepage, it looks like this. And if you go into ASAE Collaborate, it looks completely different, right? There is no doubt in your mind that you're somewhere different. Again, our friends at Heart Rhythm Society, if you're on their homepage, it has one very clear look. If you're on their learning center, it has another very clear look, so that you know you're in a different place. But maybe you don't want to do that and you want it to be seamless. And I just want to encourage you to differentiate user experience seamless from system integration seamless. Because system integration seamless, you absolutely want. You always want single sign-on, don't need to enter twice. You definitely would want to send through useful information like their membership ID, membership status. You might want to send across useful information about the purchases they've just made in the AMS to send it over to the LMS, right? So all of that is, you know, when we think about seamless, we sometimes think that integrating the systems will make it seamless, but it won't always, unless we also do user journey mapping and usability testing with a goal of reducing that friction. So what you can do is you can embed content. And I think I probably learned this originally from Mike Fry, this idea that you can take, in this case, this is Altai, Dynamics content, and embed it in the website, right? And so that this is seamless. I can be on a main website page seeing content from the LMS and the AMS. And so that is how that's a way that you can truly make it seamless. And if you're wondering how you do that, we'll talk about this one other time today. Embed codes. Embed codes are not hard. This is a career guide article on Indeed.com, right? How to use embed codes. So if you can kind of, this allows you to bring in content to truly give it to people within the website. I'm looking at, Marcy says on our join page, we have a chat function so people can ask questions and get immediate answers about membership. I love that, Marcy. And, be interested if you did any follow-up posts about kind of the burden on the staff. I know that I saw a session once where ASAE talked about having a chat function, and that in fact it wasn't too burdensome. They just had it kind of parsed out among like 3 or 4 staff, and so somebody was typically able to pick up the chat function if a member, and I've used the ASAE's chat function and found it really good. So would love to know if that is a burden on you. And then Rachel gives an example. Oh, thank you. That would be of the mini surveys. I will have a look at that. If I click it, I'll probably end my presentation. That may not be the wisest thing for me to do. So tip number 4 is going to be federate your search. And so what do we mean by that? So again, we're trying to reduce friction and bring people in. And if we think about like, oh, I want the Amazon experience, what does that actually mean? What it means is Amazon really helps you find things. If I type in Kindle, it's going to give me lots and lots and lots and lots of ideas. And the more, so there's autofill, but there's also like it's continuously trying to help me find things because it wants to sell to me. So again, going back to ASAE and their search, that is a federated search, meaning that it's pulling in information from their online community Collaborate, from their newsletter Associations Now, from their models and samples area, articles. So they have events and education. So when I needed an ethics credit for my CAE, I came and I did a search in ethics and found ethics learning. So that was great, right? Like all of the stuff was there because it's a federated search. It's searching in multiple sources. And so like when we talked a moment ago about our friends who had the separate website and the separate LMS, and there was a search in the website and a search on the LMS, you get rid of that problem of having to look in 2 places and not being able to find it. So federating your search is going to be important. And my cat is here wanting to know what I'm doing. Last tip for today. I just want to see what Marcy's saying. We have a schedule of people that manage the chat, so it's not always in 1 or 2 to respond, and it's only on during business hours. Okay. So it sounds like, I mean, it's successful in that, it's working and it's not a huge burden on the team. So that's great to hear. And Rachel says we do the same as Marcy with our chat. It's basically thought of the same as a phone. There have to be people available to answer customers. I love that, right? Because when we were all in offices, there had to be someone available to answer the phone. And it's the person who left their desk, somebody else, the calls are routed to somebody else. So this is a wonderful equivalent, and recognizing that the website is still our central portal for our customers. If they don't know, they're not going to come to our office, they're going to come to our website. But our last tip for the day is to standardize your content structure, right? What I mean like that? Well, if we think that, we go back to this idea that all of our resources are now digital resources, and we have to try and kind of bring them all together to present to our web visitors, but also our app users and our event attendees and our learning, learners. How do we do that? And so structured content is an approach where you start to be disciplined about all of the content you generate and say, I'm going to collect the same data on every piece of content, whether it's an article, a course, an event. I'm going to collect the same data. And what that allows you to do is maybe line yourself up in the future to use headless CMS. It's spooky photo. It is October, right? But we're seeing headless CMS become more prevalent. And what that is it's a way to separate the storage of content from the display of content, so that your content management system is truly a management system, and you have beautiful web templates to display that content. And what's really useful about this is not only now can you start to populate all these pages, like you want to curate the experience that we talked about earlier, right? You want to allow people to browse. Well, if you know that you have the same data on every piece of content, then you can populate a page with all of the content related to vaccinations, right? And it's going to show all the learning and the articles and the journal articles and the upcoming webinars and the event sessions that relate to it, because you can just pull that in because you really thought about how your content is structured. And not only does it come into your website well, but this really allows you to send it out through other channels. Easily send it to the newsletter, post it out on your 365 app, send it out in social media, right? There's a lot that you can do. If you're using headless CMS and you standardize your content, you're kind of setting yourself up for a success in the future. Okay, so what did we do today? Like, this was a pretty fast tour. We talked about giving site visitors context in the website so they know where they are. We talked about maximizing menus so that your visitors can see what you offer. We talked about ways to gather knowledge from them, both for your own information and to kind of have them know that they're truly seen by your organization. We've talked about giving them either visual cues about where they are through the website and truly thinking about what a seamless experience is like. We've talked about federating the search so that all the information is available no matter where you are on the website. And we talked about standardizing your content structure so that you can manage all of this amazing density of information more easily. Any questions, thoughts, comments? What are you doing? Oh, I'm Chris.
Sorry, I'll jump in with a comment. I really loved a couple of different things that you talked about that I think that we as an organization, Altai, aren't doing really well with our website. One is that conversation around maximizing menus. You had, I think, a very short clip where you sort of talked about an old standard of keeping only 7 things on a menu, but that's now outdated and gone out the window. And so I really appreciated sort of learning more about that. Can you maybe speak towards how do you change your mindset from sort of what may be a formerly standardized way of thinking about your website to these now sort of new opportunities to really set up your web engagement more appropriately? How do you sort of break free of those sort of idioms or those chains that make you think, I don't know, a couple of years ago and now think more modernization of things?
So, and I do think seeing examples of it done well really helps, and kind of seeing how others do it well. For me, what's compelling always is a story or having somebody articulate what it's like to try and use your website. So I'm such a big fan of usability testing. I think we talked about this in a previous webinar that we did together.
Mhm.
So, and it's ideal if you can get one of your members to come and you give them a task that should be pretty easy. Find an upcoming webinar on a certain topic. Find the next meeting, regional meeting in New York. So, some of that should be pretty easy, and see them struggle to navigate or go out to Google and type your organization's name with the information, and realize that it's not as obvious or as easy, that the thing that you've highlighted in the homepage, they went straight by. And so if you're involved in the website, you can do that and capture that. And then maybe that's something that you show, like a video that you show at the all hands, to showcase that story. It's also very compelling. So we often will do a usability review where I'll just come along and I'm like, I have no clue, right? And so when we're talking to the organization, we'll say, so what are things that people have said are hard to do? And they go, oh, finding a certain training or getting information on a certain event, right? And we'll take notes in that. And then I'll come along and go, okay, I'm going to find the next training on fine art, right? And I'm like, okay, And I start looking through the menus. Like we said, we see, you know, people kind of look through the menus, kind of see anything like, oh, okay. They do the search and it's not quite right. And trying to do it, you know, whether, you know, the clue, putting on the air, I always think of myself sometimes as the village idiot, you know, as I don't want, because like I come along just with no context, no understanding, and see how easy or how hard it is in that situation, I think is hugely compelling. And then you can use that to tell others. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought up the usability testing webinar. I think we'll try to include that link when we follow up with everybody, because I think it actually makes a really compelling companion webinar to this one, and the intersections are, I think, vast. So I think that's a really great overlap that we can share out when we follow up with everybody here on this crowd if you'd like to be included or interested in that webinar, because it was also a wonderful learning experience. But yes, thank you. That was resonated quite well. I'll continue talking because I'll let Brittany's question come up. She says, we are so accustomed to how our website navigation works and how to find everything. So it's easy to forget how a brand new user member may feel about our navigation.
Right. Because if we do personas, well, often we do personas and we have personas of different people. It's always important to have a persona of the person who doesn't know your organization. So you think about how you're bringing somebody brand new through, through the content to where they need to be, or where they might want to be if they knew that existed.
The other, sort of my personal other favorite part about what you spoke about today was the sort of gathering of knowledge, and that approach of sort of asking for something to be interactive. I really loved your sort of point of sort of asking questions of the author and being able to have something inclusive that creates an additional interactive point. I think we'll probably try to include more of those on our own website. I think that's a great tip to sort of say, instead of reach out and connect with us for a demo or something, we can have more of those micro interactions that sort of say, hey, what did you think of this, or what is your follow-up? And I think that we are personally missing the mark on that. I think was a really good point that I resonated well with.
Because I think particularly as we become more and more digital, we lose some of this idea of feeling like we're a community. Like I feel like some of the associations that I'm a member of or that I work with, you know, or that I used to be staff for, actually, members were kind of this, as I said, this kind of this faceless mass out there. And we served them and we tried really hard, but we didn't honestly know them. There's just too many to know them, right? So how do you make this be more personal? Because that's engagement. When I feel like I know people, I'm known, I can achieve things with people. That to me is the ultimate purpose as well of that engagement. And then the friction is, I actually don't want to talk to anyone, just make it easy, right? Removing so that's just both sides of the coin. And I love that Rachel and Marcy both are doing the chat. About how many are you getting in per day? Is it 1 or 2 a day? Is it 10 people using the chat a day? I'm interested in the volume that you have there.
And just as a reminder, you can unmute and speak up as well. So feel free to join us in the conversation.
Love to hear.
All right, that's a little easier than typing.
Yay!
So, ours, I would say the range would be like 5 to 30 a day, and the higher ones would be when we have like some big event webinar going on and people are having trouble, you know, finding the link or whatever it is. But you know, when it's not a day that we have a big webinar, it's probably between 5 and 10.
Okay.
But what was interesting is that when we launched it, the tool we use also, we subscribed to their bot, so we could pre-fill it with a bunch of common questions worded in different ways. And what we found is that the bot triggers very seldomly because people are typing in really specific questions. We were afraid that people wouldn't bother to look for their answer themselves because the chat's right there and we'd be inundated with very simple questions. But that's really not the case. We're getting like, I'm registered for a webinar next week and I'd like to transfer it to, this other date. Like they're really super specific questions. So they're kind of easy to take care of for the most part.
And those are savvy members, right? Like, they are coming to you to get something specific. So sometimes if we think of just some big mass of people, I love that your bot was triggered very seldom because they knew the answer to the easy questions.
Right. We think that's a success, a sign of success rather than a bad thing that it doesn't.
Oh,
trigger.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then they got personal service. That's great. Thank you, Rachel. And Marcy says she also agrees with the volume. Okay, so we're not talking a huge volume for something that is like when I've used it at ASAE, I've been searching for something and I said, I'm looking for data on whatever it was. And they came back and told me, like it was something very specific. I don't use it to, when is my membership up? Or I didn't use it to find an ethics course in learning because their search told me that. I used it for something very specific that I couldn't find. And it was wonderful to have that personal service there. Any other thoughts of things that you're doing well, that you'd like to share? Or failures? Oh, we always love a good horror story. And it is coming up to Halloween. So spooky, scary stories of things that haven't worked well on your websites, also useful. Okay, so Mike's saying what's coming is the ability to push your body of knowledge, everything, into a private database, and then members can ask ChatGPT to see your private data in the most amazing forms. All of this under a paywall, which supports non-dues revenue. Wow. And 5 years ago, Mike says this was a $5 million project, and today it's doable. Right. So, and in some ways, what this means is, like if we think that people come to associations for the 3 or 4 C's, right? Content, cause, content, cause, community, and sometimes commerce, right? Buy things. If that's why people come to associations, and content will be so searchable, that's what we've been talking about, reducing friction, right? Then what becomes more and more important will be the other things. The cause, so like, and that's where we want you to showcase your mission on the front page. I want to be proud to be a part of this organization. The community, I want to be seen and heard, and I want to kind of have conversations with real people, even if it's through kind of, chat interfaces. And ultimately, commerce. I want to find the solutions, buy the solutions that solve my problems. And Rachel's saying we're struggling with whether to lock down more content to members only. Almost all of our content, articles, podcasts, and blogs is open currently. That is an enduring problem. And there are many different ways to address that. Obviously, what you do want people to know that breadth of content exists. So to me, you always want at least some of that information housed in your main website so that it is found by the search engine and people know that you have the standards book or the absolute gold standard guidelines on how to do something. But then one of the things that we did in structured content for somebody else was like, if it's member only, it has a little lock on it. So it shows in the search, but if it's members only, there's a lock. And that way you showcase the wealth of information while still really protecting member value. So Chris, I saw the little timer come up saying we've 5 minutes left.
Yes, same. I'll just give a couple closeout statements, and then I feel like, if anybody else has any more questions or comments that they'd like to make on what we've discussed here today, please don't hesitate while I'm chatting on to post those in the chat or unmute yourself. But again, I wanted to remind everybody this was a CAE credit, so you'll be receiving that from us after the fact, probably within about 24 hours. We'll be sending the recording for this webinar. I think I added to our list that we'll send a recording from the previous usability testing webinar that we did, because I think they're good companion pieces. And we'll also share contact information for both Altai and Ellipsis should you have additional questions for either of our organizations regarding what you learned here today or in general.
Thrilled to have been here. My email address is horrendous. It's medwards@ellipsispartners.com. So I'm glad that Chris will be sending it out. But I am happy to chat about any of this. Clearly, this is like something I enjoy talking about. So please, if you have any thoughts or questions, would love to. Oh, maybe we'll make it an AWTC session. Like let's have lots of fun with this. Great to see everybody here today.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us today, Moira. I found this personally very engaging, and I think based on the chat, our audience did as well. So we really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thrilled to be here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons.